You said often, in different ways, that your work explores and poses fundamental questions about human condition. I would like to know more about this.
You know, I'm interested in using the work in order to sort of bring community together and people together in this sort of celebration of sorts. And I want to take this on the road, so it's like I can bring the 90 sound suits to your city, but I will then work with the city and the community to build the performance piece. You know, so I'm sort of torn between sculpture, you know, fashion, object, and sort of performance, and I think this is the best sort of scenario for me in order for it to make sense. It's not hard for me and in my head to cross over, but it's hard in terms of how the critics sort of respond to, I think, artists that are working with the notion of dress. So it's very intriguing for me to sort of just be on that edge where, is it craft, is it art? We can't be limited by these sort of categories.
I would like to know better what's your position in relation to jewel design.
I think coming from England, in England there's this real hang-up about categories and disciplines, and so, you know, I've always, for a long time I sat within that discipline. So if you make objects, three-dimensional objects to be worn, then you fall into jewellery. But all the traditional aspects of jewellery have never interested me. It's about exploring the body in relation to object, in relation to material. And so for me, it was always about making pieces for the wearer rather than the audience. So therefore, it was for experience rather than decoration.
Is your work in art nourishing your work on jewellery?
Sometimes, for example, I work with Swarovski, the commercial line of jewellery. And sometimes in their forecast books, you know, for season, I'll see a piece of my work. So that's been on catwalk. So, you know, it's kind of interesting how it feeds down. From the other extreme, working on a commercial level has actually fed into thinking about how to market my ideas in work for exhibition.
Is one of the aims, the roles of fashion to put paradoxes together?
Yeah, that's what makes fashion, in fact, interesting, to bring all these things together. But I think that our main role is to create a kind of sparkle, to create a kind of magic. You see that only the context is at the end defining what it is. Is it fashion or is it art? It's just the context. I mean, if you put your things on a catwalk, it becomes suddenly fashion. And if I put my clothes in a museum, it becomes art. So it's a very interesting thing. And I think that what makes fashion so powerful, interesting.
What is it at all times? Is it fashion? Is it art? Is it sculpture?
At the end, we don't have to answer that question.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
And I think that makes it so strong that today this exposition is showing this borderline, and that's, yeah, what's so nice about it.
You know, I think right now, you know, we're in this sort of, we're in this sort of interesting sort of recession, this sort of time where, you know, there's no money anywhere to do anything. And so it's a time right now where innovation, I think, is at its highest sort of peak. How can we sort of jumpstart someone's stimulation within what's going on in the world today? I think it's really sort of a place for artists to really sort of think about that a great deal more.
Sure.
I used to find it very important to say I'm a fashion designer and I try to describe and communicate contemporary fashion in different ways. But these days, I just don't find it important to make that difference anymore between fashion and art. We have moved on, and artist is just a more general term. What I do, I couldn't do unless I have a thorough fashion background. And I've got a BA and MA in fashion design, and that also forms my work, and I think that's still essential. Coming from Germany, I do believe in like thorough craft.
Thorough education.
I have to make that point.
How does your more experimental artistic work, I guess, complement your commercial work, and what are some of the advantages and disadvantages in that respect?
I like to make also a simple, pretty cashmere scarf. and to sell it to Bergdorf Goodman. That's also fun. And I like to see people on the street wearing my stuff. And so it's two different worlds for me. I would almost want to say that I don't really believe in the link of art and fashion. Fashion is, for me, the total opposite. It's all about restriction. It's all about money. It's all about economics. It's completely for me the opposite. What I do believe is that some designers are at the same time artists, and but that they didn't choose to live their life as an artist.
You know, artist or designer, collector or a man with a mission. I'm not quite sure which label fits me in this case or practically in any other. And often it's a little bit like when you don't fit into a label, you feel that somehow you've not achieved something. You failed a little bit. You do not fit into a label. But there's really no solution for it. Just as Christopher says, you just go on.
How did you become involved with this exhibition? And tell us a little bit about the 5 pieces that you commissioned.
It was an idea that was born when José and I had a conversation exactly about this whole area of art and fashion and what it meant and where it came from, where it went to. And then we decided to investigate that area through making an exhibition. And then we invited Judith to come along with us. So this is really like a big exploration trip. So I'm an explorer.
A lot of my work is really about trying to create new senses. I kind of like the idea of being able to sort of create a new language which you can't really necessarily describe. My biggest challenge is the commercial balance with that. How you can create this sort of duality. And that's been the challenge for me. How I can actually have something in a boutique and then somebody in the same city can go to a gallery and see a piece of mine. I think there aren't that many designers that have that duality, and I think it's really exciting. So I think that there is too much emphasis put on, art. This is this sort of big entity that, designers feel like they have to sound intelligent to be taken as seriously as artists, but there are a lot of very uninteresting artists around as well. I guess it's about ideas, and it's about how we execute them, and if it moves people, who cares if it's design, art, or if it's craft, or doesn't matter.
So often it is very difficult for me as a curator, for example, to produce a piece, to find the money, because I'm asked, is it art? Go to the art department. Is it fashion? I'm sorry, I'm a public institution. I don't give money for fashion. Go to see brands.
I actually find a lot of curators in the art world very narrow-minded. They can't get their head around if they see something that's design, and they get their panic, and it has to sort of fall within the within a certain framework. Even certain magazines that which talk about fashion, architecture, design, all in the same within the same umbrella. I think there is definitely this sort of much more of a less fragmented kind of atmosphere. So I don't feel it's an issue. But the most important thing about this show, I think, today, is, apart from there's amazing works, but I think that there aren't that many people around that would actually condone this kind of a project. And that's the most exciting thing. I don't think the exciting thing is about whether it's art, fashion, or whatever. The exciting thing is that it's actually things that relate to the body, but also things that are fashion.
Do you think that the ideas connected to the work can be better understood in a museum context than in a store?
Someone can have, a piece of poo on a plate and put it in a museum, and it becomes art, And just because it's in a museum, it's art. And, if that was outside, it would just be not even looked at. And I was thinking, there is this, stupidity in a way about how we take something more seriously if it's in this museum environment. So I think it's questionable. I think in some respects, I think it does work, I agree, but I'm equally excited about things outside the museum too.